The following program is paid for by the Real Estate Radio Network.
You're listening to Real Estate Radio Fresno on News Talk 580 KMJ. Now, live in studio, your host, local real estate expert, Craig Barton.
Good morning, Central Valley. I am your host, Craig Barton, and welcome to the Real Estate Radio Network, the most important hour of radio each week here on News Talk 580 KMJ. Real Estate Radio is a show dedicated to bringing some rational thought to the crazy world that we live in and helping you to rebuild the Central Valley's housing and credit markets. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted advice, and that's exactly what you will hear every Saturday right here at 4 a.m. here on News Talk 580 KMJ. Thanks so much for getting up with us. As always, it is so good to have our special guest host, Michelle Giggly Pettis Cavalli here. You are way too chipper for this early in the morning.
It was the extra coffee. I had coffee today.
I think back to last week when I was giving you a bad time, and you actually
hadn't had my coffee.
You hadn't had your coffee, but you also had. No, you did. You had your
I
coffee
had it
at 10 o'clock the night before.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Well, thank you to our special guest host, Michelle Pettis Cavalli, here in the studio today. Michelle is a licensed realtor and a trusted local professional. Michelle, thanks for getting up with us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Always. I start giggling at this next segment. The beauty of the Real Estate Radio Network.
Hello, we've had this conversation.
Right. Last week, and as we said, I didn't get it. I didn't get it last week when I said the beauty of Real Estate Radio Network is...
Michelle. And it stumped you, didn't it?
I didn't. I was so...
I am the beauty. But today, I may not be. I'm a little concerned. Thus far...
Are you
I've
feeling
been the only
adequate?
female in the room every time, so I consider myself to be the flower, the beauty,
Gotcha.
in the midst of all of this,
Now that we're clear,
testosterone. But we have a female guest today.
We do.
I may not be the beauty. She may be the beauty. I'm feeling a little insecure.
Well, the beauty of Real Estate Radio Network, Michelle,
Yes,
is
Michelle.
that it gives us the opportunity to reach so many people efficiently for one full hour each and every week. Our goal is to get you the timely and accurate truth about your local real estate market so we can help bring you back home. You like that?
Yeah, it makes me almost tear.
Well, on today's show, we're going to take a closer look at a topic that so many of our listeners may add, may add additional insult to injury. The last 5 or 6 years has been traumatic, to say the least, for homeowners here in the Central Valley. Taxes as they relate to your real estate, and tax consequences.
Now I'm weeping.
Now,
I had a tear. Now I'm weeping. We're talking taxes.
Well, that changed the whole giggly thing
Yeah,
there.
it
Well,
did.
tax consequences of foreclosure and short sale. Now, to help shed some light on this very confusing topic, and trust me, I say confusing, it seems very nebulous to me, and to be quite frank, I'm so happy that we've got Nancy
Really?
Ramos.
I got it in like 2 sentences. She shared the whole thing with me.
She got you up to speed?
I got it. I'm good.
Okay. Well, Nancy Ramos is a certified public accountant with Hills, Renault, Homan, and Hughes here in the studio to help answer those as well as many more questions. Make sure that you stay with us. If you have any real estate or real estate financing related questions or questions regarding the information that you hear on our show, please call us anytime at 800-979-3958. That's 800-979-3958. You can also check out our resources online at reofresnohomes.com. Or, Michelle, use press 4 keyword
KMJ, call Craig.
You are getting that down
I
so
like it.
pat.
I just love it.
To get connected to the show, we would love to hear from you. Well, you heard me say use press 4 keyword KMJ, call Craig. I'm wanting to know how many of our listeners has really started to use press 4.
Well, I am. Our other 11 million, I'm really not sure what they're doing.
You know what? I will get on that, and I'll get you some stats. Well, we
Yeah,
want to
please
help
do.
show you that you will only need one button for the rest of your life. What is Press 4? Press 4 is for all those times that you're away from your computer, Michelle, and now you can get exactly what you want. And yes, like you said before, you can get pizza if you want with just one simple push of a button on your mobile phone. Mobile home.
I'm not carrying it everywhere I go, just so you know. It's a little cumbersome.
How do you get Press 4? Well, if you have an iPhone or Android phone, just go to the App Store to get Press 4. And if you don't own an iPhone or Android, Press 4 will still work for you. Just go to the Press 4 website at press4.com. And follow the easy setup instructions. Press 4 will work on any phone, iPhone, Android, BlackBerry, Windows Phone, and even
Dumb phones.
those not-so-smart phones.
And actually, somebody asked me today for assistance on how to load Press 4.
Fantastic. How'd that go for you?
Well, I already have it.
Oh, how'd it go for them?
Them. Yeah, no, we got them all taken care of. They have
Looking
now
for a little
got
storytelling.
Press 4.
No, they got Press 4.
No, they got Press 4, but we actually did go through the computer system to do it.
Fantastic. Well, today you're going to hear us use Press 4 to help keep you in the know and to pass on all sorts of valuable information. During our show, you're going to hear us say things like, to call into the show, just use Press 4 keyword.
KMJ, call Craig.
And in this example, your phone will call directly into our showgram. One button can really do it all. Or you'll hear us say, use Press 4 keyword, KMJ HUD Homes, and we will send you more. I heard Michelle go,
I wanted to say HUD. I love the acronyms that we use.
Or you.
You know, like a couple weeks ago, CHDAP.
Okay. You'll hear us use Press 4 keyword.
KMJ HUD Homes.
And we'll send more information.
See, I was ready for a call Craig on that one, and it didn't
I heard
happen.
you take the breath
Yeah.
about HUD Homes right to your phone.
I did.
Yes, well, today, this is a new segment to our show. We are going to show you how to find your dream home. This is the Find Your Dream Home segment of our show that we're going to do every single week from here on. And the reason I think Michelle and I had this conversation this morning, what is so important about finding your home is being efficient with the process. And I think so many folks, I spoke with a client a couple weeks ago, and I had asked her. She was looking in Valencia, Bakersfield, and in Fresno. And I asked her, well, have you and your husband had an agent sit down and set up what we call an auto prospecting portal, web portal for you? And, well, she says, well, me and my husband, we like getting in the car and driving around. I said, that's great.
I'm sorry. I did not laugh out loud at that.
I said, that's great because that actually fits into the whole thing as far as
why we'd want you to have one.
Why we'd want you to have one. Because it takes all the inefficiency out of the home buying process or the home shopping process. You hop in a car, you go out and you see a sign. Seeing a sign doesn't mean that that property is active, available,
Still
sold.
available, sure.
It could have closed escrow last week and the sign just has not been removed.
And that happens often. I mean, if you're out showing, folks are going, well, what about that one over there as you drive past it and you're thinking, hello.
Because the process
No,
with what we see as
Right.
far
There's
as
so many.
all of the information that's available on the internet, the process can become so unwielding because you can search. For our listeners, you may have heard the term Trulia. You may have heard the term Zillow, which is also a kind of a property valuation website.
Right, which a lot of people will use for their own property before listing it. Which it's a helpful, useful tool, but it's not.
Tool.
It's not the answer necessarily, but it gives you some direction.
Or folks will use Realtor.com to search as well. Well, did you actually know that there is an easier way? And we're going to continue to talk about this every single week. Well, if you go to REOFresnoHomes.com, that's REO FresnoHomes.com, and if you like to drive the bus, meaning if you like to control the actual search, you can go to our website under the Find Your Dream Home tab, which is on the right-hand side of our website about half the way down. You can actually go, set up your search, and it will email you every single time a new listing comes on the market based upon the search criteria that you actually input.
Right. Now, when you say search criteria, we're doing 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 1 bedroom.
City, county, 3-bedroom,
Okay,
2-bath,
whatever.
price range, whatever it might be.
Because they're actually tapping in to a tool the realtors use, correct?
Exactly. The
Nice.
information is pulled directly from what we call an IDX search.
Right.
Directly from the Fresno Multiple Listing
So it's
Service.
live.
It is
It's
live.
a live
It is
search.
live
Awesome.
information and up to date.
Right.
Now, if you don't like driving the bus, and let's say you'd like a professional like Michelle to help you as far as setting up your search, all you need to do is give us a call at 800-979-3958. Again, that's 800-979-3958. Or use Press 4 keyword KMJ Call Valleywide, and Michelle will actually help getting that search set up for you. Right, Michelle?
That's correct. And I mean, we can do it by map. We can do it by zip code, price range, amenities in the house. There are so many different options to clients that they probably don't even realize, because when they're going online and just doing that general search, 9 times out of 10 when they call us regarding one of the properties they found online, it's gone already.
Certainly.
In this market, it's gone
Well,
already.
Especially when you look at inventory levels,
Yes.
it helps to give you a feel for. Yes, we can. Let me back up a little bit. Yes, you can drill it down to zip code, bed bath count. You can go and do a map search and say, I only want to live between these major cross streets north, these major cross streets south, west, and east, within a certain price range, and that is exactly what that portal will email you is active listings the moment they come on the market within that grid.
Right,
or
and
box.
then as they go pending or as they go sold, you will see those updates as they happen, which I think is really key because what's available today
It's real time.
may not be tomorrow,
Right.
unfortunately. And so it's a very useful tool. I mean, before taking a client out, I'm checking same day.
Certainly.
We have to check same day because they go off the market in some neighborhoods so quickly.
Correct. Like we said last week, roughly, and I didn't pull the stats this week, but last week when I pulled the stats middle of the week, there was roughly 1,750 active listings in Fresno County, which is trending about 1,000 listings less than what we saw a period of time roughly a year earlier. So inventory has decreased. Simple economics takes over. There's lower supply, greater demand right at the moment. Interest rates are at an all-time low. Home buyers are educated real fast, especially when they're taking their time. I was talking to a client last night, and he says, well, what we're going to do is we are going to actually go to Arizona, and we're going to spend a couple weeks, and then we're going to come back, and then we're going to submit our offer. And this was on a fourplex. And I said, and this is actually a personal friend of the family, and I said, well, let me ask you, if you don't mind, because he's working with another real estate broker. And I said, let me ask you a couple questions real quick. And it helped me to understand this particular fourplex was priced a little high. The seller needs some time to acclimate to the market.
To the market.
Exactly. And if he wants to, I think he's got it priced at $340 for a fourplex, receiving roughly $2,800 a month in gross rents, so $700 a door. I think he's a little high for the area right at the moment, given the rents that he's able to recoup. This client says, I'd really like to keep my return on my investment roughly about 6% or higher. So the numbers have to work for me at $280 or less. So if somebody wants to pay more than that, he says, go right ahead. I don't have to jump. It's not an emotional decision. It is strictly by the numbers. Strictly by the numbers.
Right.
So if you would like more information, don't hesitate to give us a call again, 800-979-3958, or use press for keyword KMJ, call Valleywide, and Michelle can set that search up for you.
Happy to.
Let's take a look at today's hot property. Well, today's property is a little gem, and I tell you what, it is going to go fast. And we've had 2 weeks in a row, both properties gone.
And this one I anticipate
This,
same
I
issue.
believe, is going to be gone as well. 30771 Sentinel Drive in Coarsegold, California. It is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,627 square foot home built in 1992, located on roughly 6.2 acres.
6 acres.
6 acres in Yosemite Lakes Park. Let me just say this: the view is gorgeous.
It's my little hot tub in the back. Looking out at the mountains.
The front of
Watch
the
out for the
house looks
bears.
less. Well, bears, mountain lions, and rattlesnakes.
I got it.
When Jeff was up doing his inspection, he says I was walking around the house making sure I didn't step on any rattlers.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well, with no
exactly.
rain. Hello.
The builder of this particular property is Western Homes, very
Nice.
common builder for up in that area. And this property is also a HUD home.
Nice.
Yeah, a HUD home. All this and an awesome view for only $119,000.
And let's remind everybody, not open to investors initially.
Not open to investors for the first 30
somebody
days.
who wants to live there has the first shot at this, correct?
Yep, exactly.
Right.
Owner occupants during the first 30 days. If you'd like more information about today's hot property, please give us a call, 800-979-3958, or, Michelle, use press for keyword.
KMJ hot properties.
Emphasis on the hot.
Impetus. Yeah, I love
exactly.
that.
And we'll send you more information about this hot property right to your phone.
Nice.
Look for more hot properties each week right here on the Real Estate Radio Network. Now let's take a look at some of the top stories in the news. A few shows ago, we talked about HARP.
2.0.
Yeah, and Michelle says, I didn't know we had any
Musicians
here in the office. Well, HARP is the Home Affordable Refinancing Program, and it appears to have sparked an increase in loan applications, raising hopes that more underwater mortgages could be refinanced. Now, more than 20% of the refinance applications are for HARP loans, up approximately 10% a month ago, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association, which tracks applications on a weekly basis. The Federal Housing Finance Agency unveiled changes to a streamlined HARP 1.0 program back in late October, opening the door on refinancing Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac-backed mortgages with loan-to-values north of 125%. So let's outline, let's kind of...
Yeah, slow down. These figures.
Yeah, and all these acronyms. And any loan that is owned by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, those are called conventional loans. If the underlying owner is Fannie or Freddie, and let me give you an example. Let's say you owe $200,000 on a home that is worth $100,000.
Okay.
Your first question is going to be, why are you still there, right?
No, I do not believe.
Well, we'll talk about the tax consequences of when you decide to not be there anymore a little later in the show. Well, HARP 1.0 allowed you to be able to refinance up to 125% of the current market value. So in our example, $100,000 actual current value of the property would allow you to be able to refinance a balance up to 125. Well, what about that client or that homeowner that actually owes $200? They were out of the market when it came time. So, like we said before, they were on a banana peel away from foreclosure if they experienced some sort of hardship, loss of a job, loss of a spouse, divorce.
Because they're unable to sell.
And what's the motivation? How long is it actually going to be? Is it going to take for us to be in a position where we've seen any sort of appreciation? Where's the motivation at? HARP 2.0 is actually removing or lifting the loan-to-value restrictions. So what used to be 125% before is now limitless. Okay. There is no cap.
And there's no cap?
There is
it
no
isn't
cap.
200%.
It is not 200%. My example was 200%,
right.
But it is no cap.
Okay.
It is no cap.
And I do want to know, are we getting advertising dollars for this? Because I'm sure the increase in applications is due to this show. Our 11 million listeners, they were listening. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Exactly. Well,
as a joke. Come on. You got to laugh.
Implementation of the revised program known as HARP 2.0 began December 1st.
Are there investors buying these puppies?
Investors, honestly,
the secondary market was our concern when we discussed this
last time we talked about it. Exactly. What we have seen is, if as an example, and I believe the reason for this particular increase is this, and this only thus far.
Okay.
Wells Fargo is refinancing Wells Fargo loans.
Okay.
With no limit as far as loan to value is concerned. Chase doing the same thing.
Okay.
Union Bank doing the same thing.
Okay.
Now, let me ask you a question. They're doing that, but they're not doing. Wells is not willing to refinance a Chase borrower's
which
loan.
we discussed that as well, the concerns.
So what effect refinancing an existing Wells loan, reducing the interest rate, even though there is no maximum for loan to value?
Right.
Do you think that has an effect potentially at some point down the road as to whether the homeowner is going to stay in their home? My feeling is this: if Wells is already in a bad position with someone that is underwater, let's try to make it better if we can. And in this particular instance, that is what we've seen. But let's not take on anyone else's problems.
Right.
And that is exactly the mindset of any of these large banks is, we'll take care of our own house, but we're not going to worry about anybody else. We're not going to mess with anyone else. We're not going to go. Wells is not going to refinance any Chase and vice versa.
Okay.
And that has been the difficult thing to get participation on the secondary market.
Now they're retaining their own mortgages at this point. It's all their own investment.
Or they're retaining the servicing rights. It may be sold ultimately because it is a Fannie Mae Freddie Mac loan. Okay. But they're retaining the servicing rights.
Okay. All right.
So
thank you for clarification.
Yeah, not a problem.
I still think we should get advertising dollars.
So come in the next couple of weeks, we're expecting to see we're expecting to, let's just help ourselves.
Okay.
When they roll out these guidelines, and we are able to see, and like you had mentioned earlier, secondary market has not wrapped their arms around this. We are hoping to see next week sometime that when Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac update their guidelines as far as their automated underwriting engines are concerned, that the secondary market is at least is somewhat of a decent reception.
Right, right.
In speaking with someone earlier today, from what they had heard, and this is really what we've been looking for, is what's the word on the street? Well, the word on the street is that even though there is an unlimited cap as far as loan to value is concerned, that most secondary market players are going to cap it at 125. Well, it was capped at 125 before,
but they weren't buying.
But they weren't buying it at 125. They were buying it at
so
105.
They're putting their piggy in the water. They're testing it with their toes.
Just slightly.
Let's feel this out a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So,
all right.
I do think that it's going to take. Barry Habib, in the article that I read here, talked about some sort of refinance down to 90 to 95% loan to value of the current market value, and then the balance is then offset or turned into a second mortgage that is actually held by the Federal Reserve. Well, again, it's kind of like Senator Menendez's bill from back in New Jersey that was talking about a 95% refinance, but the balance was being forgiven. Again,
this isn't forgiven.
In order for the market to normalize, we need some sort of reduction for those folks, I believe, because reducing the interest rates just isn't going to get it done. I don't think it's enough. And getting the secondary market to do anything takes some sort of either beating somebody over the head,
or a lot of dollars incentivizing, which isn't there,
or TARP, like we said before, the toxic acid. It takes a tremendous amount of incentives for folks to actually step to the table. So again, I don't know that this is going to be enough. I don't know if there's going to be enough players that are going to come to the market on the secondary side that are actually going to be willing to purchase these loans. Again, time will tell. We're roughly a week away. I don't even think that after next week, I think there's going to be a lot of people that are waiting for a shoe to fall. But it just isn't going to fall. I do
think it's interesting, those banks that are choosing to participate. It does give a little peer pressure out there saying, hey, we're doing this for our folks. What are you doing? Come to the plate and play. Let's go.
Exactly.
So the fact that they're at least putting their foot in the water for the 125, maybe that'll start to move things in the right direction.
That will open up a certain degree or a certain percentage of homeowners that are underwater, but ultimately there is still going to be those limitations, and it's not going to help everyone. And until this problem corrects itself, until we get back to a more normal delinquency, like we said, somewhere in the ballpark of 2.5% on average, this is not going to fix itself anytime soon.
Well, and let's be honest, there were folks who took on mortgages who should not have been able to qualify in the subprime market, who to this day could not qualify with the situation if it were to repeat itself based on their credit, their income, and the situation they were in at the time. So those people are not going to have access to this type of product.
Well, what if they...
Unless improvements have been, unless activity on their part has changed.
Certainly.
Their credit worthiness and whatnot.
Chances are those particular mortgages are not owned by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So when it comes down to it, they won't be eligible for this particular program. No, that's okay.
Sorry to muddy the water.
You had me confused right there.
I know.
I was looking
I like to do that to you, though.
Squirrel. Okay. Again, I do agree that it is a situation that at some point there has to be some sort of forgiveness or set aside as far as the balance is concerned to normalize the market so that we don't have folks that are going to continue to be what we call strategic foreclosures that actually make a choice to walk away from that particular property. So time will tell. Hopefully this next week we will have a little better idea as to where we're going. But keep in mind, we will always keep you in the know. Now, after the break, we are going to talk about the beauty of real estate radio, which is Michelle. Yes.
Yeah, teasing.
We're going to talk about the tax consequences of foreclosure and short sales. And we have Nancy Ramos, a certified public accountant with Hills, Renault, Homan, and Hughes. Am I getting that right, Nance?
You are, and good morning.
And she has an acronym of her own,
What's that?
CPA.
Yes, she is a certified public accountant here in the studio to help us or help show us that this is not all as black and white as you might think. Well, you are not going to want to miss this. You are listening to the Real Estate Radio Network here on News Talk 580 KMJ.
This program is brought to you by the Real Estate Radio Network. Visit realestateradio.us for more info. That's realestateradio.us.
Thinking about buying a home? Find out how the HUD Home Store can help you. Visit HUDHomestore.com. Look at HUD homes available for sale near you or nationwide. Why HUD Home Store? HUD will pay up to 3% of the buyer's closing cost. The price of the home is based on an FHA as-is appraisal, which is already completed, saving you an average of $400. And there is an owner-occupant priority bidding period during the first 30 days. Want to know more? Visit HUDHomestore.com.
All it takes is one call to the professionals at Valleywide Homes, and you'll start building wealth in real estate. Whether you're looking for your first home, moving up, or your next income-producing investment property, let the experts at Valleywide Homes help. There's never been a better time to get into the real estate market. Visit our website at reofresnohomes.com or call toll-free 800-979-3958. That's 800-979-3958. And put the seasoned professionals of Valleywide Homes to work for you.
You're listening to Real Estate Radio Network with local expert Craig Barton. Now, here's Craig.
Well, there are so many things about taxes that we could be talking about today, but we are going to try to narrow it down as best we can. And don't think for a moment, just a comment to our listeners, this is when you really need to start paying attention, because I got lost the first time I sat down with Nancy and started covering the topic, because there's a whole lot of information contained with what we are going to talk about. And I don't want to just jump to the end of the show and say, you need to call Nancy.
Well, the nice part is I asked her ahead of time, please speak in layman's terms, because I'm going to be sitting in. So she's going to do her best.
You didn't say layman's terms. You said dumb it down a little.
Well, I did, but I was trying to be nice.
Well, again, to help shed some light on this very often confusing topic, we have Nancy Ramos, a certified public accountant with Hills, Renault, Homan, and Hughes, here in the studio to help answer those and many more questions. Nancy, thank you so much. Yeah, I know,
I'm hoping I can help.
Listen, I've known you long enough where I know you have all the answers. So no sandbagging and no holding back, okay? Well, first of all, let's again to clarify, we're going to talk about the tax consequences of foreclosure and short sales.
So can we talk about the difference?
Well, yeah, we sure can, Michelle. I'm glad you asked. It just so happens that was the next bold.
Shh! Don't tell them that you gave me notes.
They think we're doing this all off the top of our head.
I think I know this much.
Hey, anybody that knows me knows I'm not that bright. So now the first misnomer is this: someone loses their home.
They have tracking devices now.
Yeah, little anklets that
they attach to the home.
Or they
so it starts to run away. You can catch that puppy.
You wake up in the morning, you say, "Hey, this wasn't on here before."
I'm teasing. Okay, sorry.
Little did you know that there are tax consequences of a foreclosure, and the first thing is, let's define real quickly, folks. Have an idea, and I'm sure most folks have a general idea, but let's talk about foreclosure. Foreclosure is a specific legal, me and my definitions.
I know.
I like lining it out.
It's
so
like Wiki Craig.
Yeah, Wiki Craig. Foreclosure is a specific legal process where a lender attempts to recover the balance of a loan from a borrower who has stopped making payments for whatever reason to the lender by forcing the sale of the asset used as the collateral for a loan. Now, foreclosures are treated as the sale of a property for tax purposes. Homeowners going through foreclosure will need to calculate their gain or loss for tax purposes, as well as consider any tax income that might be due on the forgiveness or cancellation of debt. I'm already confused. I have ADHD, and I usually read like a sentence. Actually, it's more like 8 words is my limit, and then I'm already thinking I'm off somewhere else. Well, there are 2 separate issues here: gain on the sale of the property and the income from any debt forgiveness. And thank goodness, Nancy, that is why we have you here. Let's talk about the foreclosure process real quick. And again, this is kind of part of the definition. We've talked about foreclosure. What is it? What's the process? Well, typically, when you are delinquent by roughly about 90 days on your mortgage, you then become in default. And you'll start receiving letters from the lender stating that you're either in default of your payment agreement, and you're in default after you're 30 days delinquent. they'll start notifying you that we could, as a remedy for collecting on this debt, we could foreclose. Well, you are roughly 90 days down, and at that point, the lender can legally file what's called a notice of default, actually signifying the fact that they're going through the process of foreclosure. At that point that you are in default, and that notice of default has been filed, only the total principal, interest, and all fees balance that is owed on that mortgage. So if you're $10,000 in principal and interest plus filing fees from the trustee that actually filed that notice of default, that's all due and payable. They will not accept partial payments at that point anymore. Prior to the notice of default, they will accept partial payments. After the notice of default, it is the total amount to bring the mortgage current and then subsequently rescind the notice of default.
I find that, that's new.
That's
specific.
interesting.
Yeah.
I know what happens afterwards, but to know when and how the
Here, we're supposed to
foreclosure
be teaching
happens.
him.
I'll get there. I'll get
me
there.
too.
Yeah.
Okay,
Trust me, you'll get there, and you'll get there fast.
I'll ask you a few notes so you can help out.
I'm concerned. Okay, I want to clear, because that's really an interesting tidbit. Notice of default.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to notice of default, they can make up the amount that they're in arrears, is what you're saying.
They can pay any amount before
The bank
the notice
wants
of
the money.
The
Please
bottom
pay us
line is
$5.
send us a
We're
payment.
good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, send
you
us
could be 3
something.
payments down. Send us anything.
Okay, and have those conversations with the
Certainly.
institution.
You're
Okay.
going to be getting collection phone calls,
Right,
so
right.
guaranteed.
But when they file the notice of default, boom, all negotiations are off.
All due and payable.
Discussion. We're calling
Whatever-
the note is what they're doing.
No, they're not calling the total amount of the note due and payable. They are wanting to collect all that is delinquent, all principal and interest and fees that are due.
Okay, because that's where I got confused. You lost
So
me
let's
there.
say your payment's $1,000 a month.
So now I'm
and
$3,000
You're $3,000 down
plus late fees.
trustees
Okay.
fees. So let's say it's $3,500.
Okay.
At that point, that's the amount
Yeah.
to cure.
We're not talking to you unless you have that. Is
to
what
cure
they're
the notice
saying.
of default.
I see.
Exactly. And
Okay.
how many times do I get folks that call up and say, I sent them a payment for $1,500 and
Didn't
they
matter.
return they return
Once
it
they
right back
file.
to your.
So you better be having some conversations.
You better be.
if at all possible.
After the notice of default, the soonest that the servicer can file what's called a notice of sale is roughly 90 days.
Okay.
At that point, the full mortgage becomes accelerated. What you just said, as far as is it the full? Once the notice of sale is filed,
Right.
the whole kit and caboodle is
So-
due. Principal, let's say you borrowed $100,000, so
Uh-huh.
you've got $100,000 plus all interest payments plus all fees that you have to
Come to the
to
table with
rescind
all of it.
the notice of sale.
And that's
exactly.
after the notice of sale.
So notice of
Okay.
default's filed, then another 90 days, notice of sale is filed, then another 21 days after that
Before they're banging at the courthouse.
before
steps.
the property can go to sale at the courthouse steps. And at that point, it's virtually
Okay.
too late. Yes, you can. I've seen notice of sales or sales at the courthouse step that have been postponed. You've got to have a really good reason. A bankruptcy is one of the ways that you can actually get that process postponed, depending upon how delinquent the mortgage was. Nancy, we had spoken the other day, and you had brought up an example where there was someone that you knew that had actually, how many months was it that they had not made a payment on their mortgage?
It's been, I think, about 2 years.
About 2 years.
Yes.
Every once in a while you do see that. There's one that slipped through the cracks. The question that Nancy asked, well, why hasn't a notice of default been filed? Well,
Yeah, why are
that
they
does
still
happen.
hanging around?
glitch in the system. Who knows?
Exactly.
I had seen someone, it could be a servicing issue. It could have been a bankruptcy that maybe that you're not privy to or they're not disclosing to you because, again, there are certain variables. It could just be flat-out oversight. So, Nancy, let's talk about real quick as far as the type of properties that are affected or could be affected typically that we see in this realm, and especially here in the Central Valley over the last 5 or 6 years, are a primary residence, and we identify these because how the consequences potentially change based upon it being your primary residence versus a second home. A second home might be, for our listeners, a vacation home if you own a cabin up in Shaver, let's say, or up in Bass Lake, or a little cottage over on the coast at Pismo. That is a second home, but it is a place that you go visit and stay, but it's not your primary residence. And Nancy, there's probably rules with regards to how many days you stay there per year that...
There are, but really, if you think about it, your primary residence is where all your mail comes.
Certainly.
It's where all your friends are. It's your home
It's your hub.
base,
Yeah,
so
your
to
home base,
speak.
exactly.
I have relatives that have a second home, and they spend roughly half the year at their second home and half the year at their primary residence. And so I was thinking about this since I knew I was coming, and I thought, how would you really decide what their primary residence is? Well, when you really look at the big picture, their home, their primary home is in the desert. That's where everything is. That's where everybody comes to visit. That's where, again, mail comes, driver's licenses are there, their voter registration is there.
Sure. Okay.
These are the things that you would look for as being your primary residence.
Primary residence, second home, and then lastly, investment property. And that's
big.
That's a big area. So, Nancy, to help define for us, and I really had to break it down the other day because I was getting confused, and Nancy could see it, and I kept putting my hand on my forehead. What is and this is something I didn't know a whole lot about. I've been doing this for a while, but let me tell you, I've heard the term. What is a recourse loan versus a non-recourse loan? And I think it's important that our listeners kind of have a general understanding of what is recourse, what is non-recourse, and how it affects the potential tax ramifications of a foreclosure or short sale.
Huge difference. A recourse loan is a loan that if you default on it, the lender comes back to you. They come back to you, they expect you to find a way to pay it off. Think of a credit card. You default on a credit card, the lender's coming back to you. A non-recourse loan, on the other hand, in most original mortgages, first mortgages in California, are a non-recourse loan. And what that means is when you default on the loan, the lender goes after the property. Now, the property may not be valued enough to cover the loan, but that's all they can do.
Which has happened a lot over the last 5 or 6 years, that's for sure.
It has. And so that's a good guide is if I give you the property, the collateral, am I done with you? Right. Non-recourse.
And from a 10,000-foot view, the difference you just brought, you mentioned something that is extremely important. The difference between states can be huge. So it most definitely depends upon where the property is located, because if it's a situation where you reside in California, how many times is it that folks will live in California but have a property in Nevada or have a property in Las Vegas? Which I do realize is in the same state. But I was just giving, Nevada and Las Vegas.
We're keeping up.
We're with
our listeners
here.
are smart.
Yeah.
We're good. We're good.
Way smarter than me. So
I knew what you meant.
In general, a purchase money mortgage is a non-recourse debt. So what is an example of a recourse debt?
Well, one, like a credit card, but when it comes to your mortgage, it could be a second. It's possible that if you refinance that original loan, take out extra because your equity built, so you went in and got some more.
So many folks refinanced.
They
2003, 4, 5, 6 as property values were increasing.
Most likely that second loan is now a recourse loan.
Gotcha. And does it actually state that? How many over the years I've done thousands of loans, mortgages for folks. Does it state that in the actual context of the note? Do you know?
I would think it might, but I'm not positive either, because as we'll get into later on, if you refinance your home, there still may some non-recourse coverage should you default.
Gotcha.
But for the purposes of our conversation right here, non-recourse loan, they're coming after you.
Gotcha. So even if it is a non-recourse loan, there still might be some potential coverage based upon the original amount of the mortgage that you originally borrowed to purchase the property. And then also, do I remember you saying something with regards to if there were capital improvements that you made to the actual residence, that could help increase that?
Correct. So you take out your original loan, you buy your house. A couple years later, you take out another loan for $20,000. You put in a pool. You do an addition. That additional funds, that addition now is part of your non-recourse loan. That loan itself may not be non-recourse, but in a foreclosure setting, that loan takes on the same property as the original loan.
So the improvements are added to your non-recourse.
Is there anything above and beyond that original mortgage amount, and let's say you put a pool in, is there any other expense? And the reason I ask this is because I had a client that I was speaking to this morning, and they had used some of the monies on this particular loan to put a pool in, and they had also used some of the monies for some additional capital improvements to the house. but they had also used it to send their kids to school, to college.
Yeah, no, that
Yeah,
doesn't work.
qualify.
Doesn't work. You know, when housing prices were so high and there was so much equity, people were refinancing and they were taking vacations, buying cars, sending their kids to college. That's all good stuff, and what a great way to do it, using your home as collateral. But unfortunately, now in this day, it can come back and bite you.
Yeah.
So
That's what student loans are for.
That's what
I can attest to that. I create them daily.
you're in deep, are you?
I'm in deep.
All right. So we talked about recourse versus non-recourse. Now, Nancy, this is where it starts to get really murky for me. So here, take my hand and help lead me down the path. When you start talking about capital gains versus and let me kind of say something here real quick, and then you can tell me to shut up and that you correct me.
I won't tell you to shut up. I'll just correct you.
I'll just correct you. So capital gain is, like, as an example, on your primary residence. If I've lived in this particular property for at least the last 2 out of the last 5.
Correct.
Okay. And it's as my primary residence. I am afforded, if I am married, I am afforded up to a $250,000 exemption per spouse for a total of $500.
Correct.
Where if there's a gain on that property, I'm not going to get taxed. So
Correct.
hopefully for our listeners, I did a good job and I didn't muddy the waters too much.
And it's the old homeowner's exemption. This thing has been around forever. It used
Hasn't
to be.
changed.
Hasn't changed. Used to be, you sold your house, you had a gain, you rolled it into the value of the new house. That changed, I think about 10, 12 years ago, where now you have a gain, there's a $500,000 exclusion on the gain. If you're married, filing joint, or single, it's $250,000, and that gain just goes away. Again, only on your primary residence.
So let's take that. We've talked. That's the easy capital gain for me
That
to
is.
figure out,
That's
Michelle.
the
I'm
gain,
with
yes.
you. The gain.
Yeah.
So let's talk about capital gain or loss on foreclosures. It's all you.
Well,
No pressure.
no pressure.
Great,
no pressure.
thanks.
In truth, and I say this tongue in cheek and a little bit of salt thrown over the shoulder, if you're going through a foreclosure, most likely there is no gain. I have heard of some really rare exceptions. Unfortunately, I don't have examples of where a gain could come out of a foreclosure. 9 times out of 10, the homeowner's exemption just isn't going to play a part in it because there just isn't going to be a gain.
Sure,
You are underwater. What you owe is more than what your house is valued at. The only time I could really see something is if you bought a home at a very low price, maybe 20, 30 years ago. You've been in that house. You started pulling out a lot of funds as equity rose. And now, even though the original cost of that house may have been $100,000 and your mortgage is $200,000, well, that still wouldn't work. You're still going to be underwater. Sorry.
Well, I can see, though, I mean, here locally, I know that, 2 years ago when I was a young kid.
2 years ago?
Are we going?
Years ago.
Are we
Come
going back to
on,
that example
stay with
where
me,
you were
baby,
12
stay
2 years
with
ago
me.
shopping for a
Yeah,
house,
exactly.
your first house?
I see
Exactly.
why she's the beauty.
Right.
I don't know, Nancy. It's both of us today. He has 2 flowers in the studio today. You and I. Let's flip our hair together. Nonetheless, my thought process, though, in talking capital gains and with property values, I know that when I was a young person, just 2 days ago, though we hear stories, though, about people buying properties that, let's talk headliners. Back in the 60s, these homes were built and sold for, $10,000 or less in some cases. And now those homes have gone through the wave the same way. And now those homes that were built way back when, if someone had possession of that home way back when and has used their home to pull cash from since then, there may be an issue of capital gains in that situation, yeah? If they've owned the home that length of time and it's raised in value and...
Yeah, well, if it's raised in value, very, very possible. And I'll say this, truly, in this whole mortgage mess that's gone on, our high-value premium homes really have held their value.
The high values have.
Those homes are still doing good. So it is possible.
Okay.
It's very possible that you could have a gain coming out of one of these. Probably for our listeners, though.
Yeah. It's slim.
Yeah. That's where I throw in the old adding insult to injury. In other words, really, truly, if you have experienced foreclosure, and many of us have firsthand, in this market over the last 5 or 6 years. And to add and I say the insult, I understand tax consequences are a way of life, like death, and what was the other thing?
Yeah, just death.
Death and taxes. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
And change.
What's that?
And change.
And change,
Yeah.
exactly. That you lose a property, and then there are potential tax consequences. Right. Well, let's briefly touch on, and the reason I say that, we're going to briefly kind of talk about this before the break, because we're going to come back and we're going to talk about, after the break, the Mortgage Forgiveness Debt Relief Act and debt cancellation. But real quickly, identify exactly what debt cancellation, or define it for us. Exactly what is debt cancellation?
Debt cancellation is the portion of any debt you have, mortgage, credit cards, revolving, any debt you have, that the lender chooses to say, don't bother paying me for. Just walk away, you don't owe me
What a
anymore.
nice lender.
Gosh.
Very nice lender.
Are they giving out loans? Oh, no. Sorry, wrong.
Yeah.
Usually when it comes to your mortgage, though, and a foreclosure or short sale, it's the portion of that loan that can't be recovered through a sale of some sort.
Gotcha.
Now, in that situation, does the lender take that as a tax break for the company, the corporation on their side? Is that how they can do that?
Tax break, that's a nice word. I think really and truly
loss.
it's called
I'm
loss.
sorry, loss.
Yes, loss.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm in the beginnings of my business degree. A loss.
Yes.
Yeah, but is that where they're taking it? Is that where
Yeah.
the
And
Chase and B of A and all these people are taking it as a loss?
That's why we're
Okay.
seeing a lot of the banks doing some of the things they're doing to still look good, because they're eating this
On paper.
this
On
stuff
paper,
on
yeah.
paper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Creative
Okay.
accounting, is that what you
I
call it?
wasn't going to say that,
Okay.
but yeah.
Sorry.
Just the $5 fees we're now all paying
Yeah.
for everything at the bank.
Right,
yeah.
that ATM
Gotcha.
debit fee, what have you, with Bank
Yeah,
of
yeah,
America.
yeah.
So on a credit report, the comparative for a revolving credit would be a charge-off, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm with you. Hey, I'm keeping up.
You're doing
Wow,
good.
I'm
thank
trying.
goodness. Well, I'll try to bring up the rear. How's that?
All right.
If you have any real estate or real estate financing related questions, or questions regarding the information that I haven't done a very good job of covering, but Nancy is the expert and has done a phenomenal job, please call us anytime, 800-979-3958, if you'd like to put us in if you'd like to be put in contact with Nancy. Or you can check out our Reese's Pieces online.
I would like some Reese's Pieces.
Yeah, was that a
actually. Go well with my
copyrighted-
coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Check out our resources online at reofresnohomes.com, or, Michelle, just use press forward keyword KMJ.
Call Craig.
Call Craig to call into the show. Well, after the break, we're going to continue our conversation with Nancy Ramos, a certified public accountant with Hills, Renault, Holman & Hughes. And we're going to talk at length about the Mortgage Forgiveness Debt Relief Act and debt cancellation specifically. Stay right there. You are not going to want to miss this. You are listening to the Real Estate Radio Network here on News Talk 580 KMJ.
This program is brought to you by the Real Estate Radio Network. Visit realestateradio.us for more info. That's realestateradio.us.
Thinking about buying a home? Find out how the HUD Home Store can help you. Visit HUDHomestore.com. Look at HUD homes available for sale near you or nationwide. Why HUD Home Store? HUD will pay up to 3% of the buyer's closing cost. The price of the home is based on an FHA as-is appraisal, which is already completed, saving you an average of $400. And there is an owner-occupant priority bidding period during the first 30 days. Want to know more? Visit HUDHomestore.com.
Mortgage interest rates are at historic lows, and there's never been a more affordable time to buy real estate. Whether you're looking for your first home, moving up, or your next income-producing property, let the mortgage professionals at Valley White help. Valley White Homes has been helping homeowners with their mortgage needs since 1997. When it comes to the Valley's real estate, we know our way around the neighborhood. Call toll-free, 800-979-3958, and put the seasoned professionals at Valley White Homes to work for you. Valley White Homes, NMLS number 342062, 235952, California Department of Real Estate License 01228460.
You're listening to Real Estate Radio Network with local expert Craig Barton. Now, here's Craig.
Well, before the break, we've been talking with Nancy Ramos, a certified public accountant with Hills, Renault, Holman & Hughes. And now we are going to touch on what is termed the Mortgage Forgiveness Debt Relief Act, and talk about specifically what debt cancellation is and how it relates to the process of foreclosure. Now, Nance, can you give us kind of a brief highlight as far as what really was the Mortgage Forgiveness Debt Relief Act of 2007, kind of in general?
I can say it in just a few words. It was the most amazing gift ever given by the IRS to the people of this great nation.
You saw me roll my eyes.
I saw you roll your eyes. But in truth, it was. Oddly enough, for the few things we get from the IRS,
Right.
this was a wonderful gift, because what they did was, and I say IRS, came through Congress,
Sure.
but what they did was they said, look, our people are losing their homes left and right. They're losing jobs, medical issues, whatever the case is. They're having to be kicked out of their homes or having to short sale them. And then they're saddled with debt. They're saddled with the debt of the portion of the mortgage that was not covered by the sale of the home. And now they owe the IRS all this money. They owe the government. And it came down to, let's do something nice for these people. Let's forgive it.
Wow.
Okay.
And so there's
Could not have come at a better time.
Exactly. And actually, I think there were a few folks beforehand, of course, this was all
Sure.
starting, who really could have benefited
This
from
was
it.
the beginning of the wave that was crashing up against the shore, and unfortunately, there were some folks that were excluded.
Yes.
So
Yes.
let's talk real quick. So we've got this Mortgage Debt Relief Act. How does, again, a refinance affect, if you've refinanced, does it mean that that debt is forgiven? Depends.
I'm sorry. Every answer is
She's
a
like
depends.
a tree stumped.
Yes. As long as if you've refinanced your original mortgage, you can have forgiven up to the original value of your original mortgage.
Sure.
Forgiven through this. Anything above and beyond will not be covered under the Mortgage Relief Act.
Gotcha.
And a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think that this act covers the mortgage on their home. It also does not cover any second mortgages.
Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha.
yeah,
It's
it
so
can be a little murky out there.
If it's a second mortgage and they took cash out to do capital improvements, is that an exclusion?
That's an exclusion.
So,
Yes.
So again, original mortgage amount plus any capital improvements to the property, that
Exactly.
helps as far as
Exactly.
yeah. So, and this Mortgage Relief Act is only going to be good through this year.
It is. I've heard some talk they may extend it, especially since this is an election year. But as of right now, if you're going through foreclosure or short sale, December 31st.
December 31st. I saw Michelle roll her eyes again because she's.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh, we've got to get Congress to actually do something.
It is an election year. Did I say that out loud?
You did.
We really are working on that.
Both sides of the aisle
Yeah.
really need to come
Yes.
together because otherwise.
Well, no, both sides of the aisle need to come to the show.
Yeah, they already listen to this show.
Well, they're coming to the show. I'm
they're
going to call them because I really want explanations. Darn it.
What they're going to do to make sure.
Yeah.
So again, primary residence, just as an example, excluded or protected. Protected.
Yeah.
Okay. Second home.
Probably not,
Gotcha.
because it's not your primary residence, but there may be arguments for. So you want to see a professional. If you've got a second home,
Call Nancy.
Call Nancy.
That's
Call
my,
me.
my recommendation is call
Call
Nancy.
me.
I'm going to tell you right now, I already do call Nancy. So.
Call Nancy. Before you lose your second home, call Nancy.
Yeah. Investment property.
not covered.
Not
And
covered.
I'm watching a lot of people
Yeah.
walk away from their investment property just to keep their home.
Yeah. Well, that's
Well, here's the deal.
That
That's
we know that's
exactly
what's gonna
why
happen.
investors in
Yeah.
the secondary market leverage those mortgages the way they do, to at least
Right.
20% down, because if there is anything that's going to go, it's going to be that
Right.
first.
Right.
Now, this is the other thing, Nancy. We haven't even had the opportunity to be able to talk about short sales. Do we want to do a second show for that, or is short sale mirror some of what we've talked about as far as foreclosures?
You
are
know what?
concerned?
It's almost exactly the same, except for that in a short sale, when the house sells, you're covered basically, because there will be no cancellation of debt unless you have a second on there
Gotcha.
or something above and beyond if you've taken out some extra funds out of your
okay.
house.
So the additional funds after an original purchase.
Correct,
that
unless
you
it's
took
for
out.
a capital improvement. Sorry.
Okay.
Those
That
will
is
not-
what they are getting 1099s on
Yes.
those. Okay.
I'm going to
Yes.
ask this question because I know there are our listeners out there
Questioning?
that are going to ask this question.
Okay.
So you lose a home, you move on down the road, you don't have a forwarding address. what happens if you never get what is the appropriate form that you're supposed to be getting from the
You're
lender?
going to get one of two forms. If it's a cancellation of debt, you'll get a 1099-C.
I can remember that because it's
Cancellation
a C for
of
cancellation.
debt.
Yes,
I
there
like
we go.
that.
There we go.
If
I
you
love acronyms.
foreclosed on your home, you'll get a 1099-A, which is acquisition abandonment of property.
Okay. And that one
Abandonment.
is taxable. No,
well,
it's going to
no.
depend.
And again, it depends. If you get one of
Oh,
these,
wow.
I highly recommend you go see your tax professional.
You
a
go
C
see
or
it.
an A.
so that they can help you sort it all
yeah.
out.
Yeah. Okay.
So whether it is a foreclosure or whether it is a short sale, bottom line is every taxpayer's situation is so different.
Yes.
One slight change as far as the variable is concerned, one thing you did or did not do. It's extremely, extremely important that you have a tax preparer that's knowledgeable, like Nancy.
Correct.
And Nancy, you'd be happy to answer questions, I'm sure, because
Gladly.
just like every other week, we are going to get a slew of phone calls that we can hopefully turn
Correct.
those particular listeners on
Correct.
you just to get the answers. So I tell you what, hopefully this particular this topic hasn't been so deep or convoluted that
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think bottom line, you need tax help. You need to seek someone in this situation regardless.
Exactly.
definitely.
And
It's
just
convoluted.
real quick, you need to know that if you've been in a short sale or a foreclosure, even if you didn't receive these forms, there's still some filing requirements, and that's why I really want to say, go see a tax professional.
Exactly. Well, if you have any real estate or real estate financing related questions or questions for Nancy regarding the information that we've covered here on the show, we'd love to hear from you. Call us 800-979-3958 or check out our resources online at reofresnohomes.com or just use press 4 keyword, Michelle.
KMJ, call Greg.
Talk to us anytime. Thank you so much, Nancy Ramos,
You are
certified public
welcome.
accountant. Thank you, Michelle, for joining us
Anytime.
as always, and
Thank
always
you.
a big thank you to Johnny B behind the mics. Johnny, you make us each week sound so good. Our goal, remember, is to get you the timely and accurate truth about your local real estate market so we can help bring you back home. Don't forget to tune in to the Real Estate Radio Network next Saturday at 4 a.m. on News Talk 580 KMJ. Make it a great day, Central Valley, and we will see you next week.
The preceding program was paid for by the Real Estate Radio Network.